What would you do if you went urban exploring with your friends, only to realize that this place that you thought would be a fun adventure turned out to be something more dangerous and much more evil? What if while you were urban exploring in this place with your friends, something decided it wanted to keep you in this old abandoned place forever, never to be able to leave, never to be able to go back to normal? Well, in today's video, we will be exploring this, understanding what the protagonist might do to get out of the situation, as well as me giving my spiel at the end. Hello, I'm Cece. Welcome to the Crucible of Character. Today's story was sent in by r/scary stories, and it was written by Promotion OK 6582, and it's entitled, "We went exploring in the basement of an abandoned factory, and something found us." And it starts like this. Zoe leaned against the old abandoned factory, lighting up a cigarette while waiting for her friends. "Don't forget the bag out of the car," Mason called back to his friend, Ethan, who was already pulling the bag off the back seat before closing the door. Yeah, he grumbled, slinging the bag over his shoulder. Zoe took another drag of her cigarette before tossing it onto the ground and stomping it out. It was an overcast day, and the factory stood unassuming in the middle of an empty field. Half the windows were shattered, and the other half thick with grime. "All right, well," Mason looked at Zoe. We ready?" Zoe widened her eyes and pursed her lips in that exaggerated "well, here goes nothing" look. The three of them climbed through a hole in the wall of the building. There was a faint smell of oil and grease in the air, and a constant whistling from the wind threading through various openings. "Holy crap, this place is creepy," Ethan whispered. "You don't need to whisper. I don't think there's anyone here," Mason replied, throwing a stone through a window, causing it to shatter. The noise reverberated around the building. Ethan cringed at the sound. "Okay, was that necessary?" Zoe laughed and wandered further in, looking at all the abandoned machinery. Huge metal production machines left to rust stood looming over broken conveyor belts. "So apparently, this building manufactured medical mannequins," Ethan said, scrolling through his phone. Mason shone his flashlight into a maintenance closet. "What, like those CPR training dummies?" "I think so, yeah. It says here they abandoned production in 1986 due to an accident, claiming the lives of 7 workers. Crap. Wonder what the heck happened," Zoe replied, moving a piece of timber out from in front of a steep, rusted metal staircase. She looked down into the darkness before shining her flashlight down. The light only illuminated a few of the steps. "Hey guys, creepy basement," she called out, turning around and looking at the other two. Mason tossed the piece of metal pipe he was holding and wandered over to her. Ethan turned his phone off and joined them. They all looked down into the darkness. "Not it," Mason called first. "Not it," Zoe replied quickly. "Ah, crap," Ethan sighed. Ethan took a deep breath before carefully stepping down onto the first step. The staircase groaned loudly, and Ethan immediately jumped back. "It won't hold my weight. There's no way." Mason groaned and pushed him out of the way, quickly descending the staircase, his flashlight disappearing into the darkness. "Dude," Ethan sighed again. Zoe smirked and went down next. Ethan quickly followed, not wanting to be alone. The smell of oil and grease intensified. The air became thick and humid. Zoe shone her flashlight down the steps, descending slower as she noticed a couple of the steps were missing. When they reached the bottom, they found Mason crouching down. "Be careful. The floor is coated with grease or something," Mason said, looking up at them. Ethan shone his flashlight around the basement space. They were in a small brick room with a couple of connecting hallways and some pipes running along the walls and ceiling. The floor was concrete, but coated with a slippery, grease-like substance. Mason stood and shone his light down the hallway. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wasn't normally a fan of enclosed spaces. If he was being honest, he didn't even want to tag along, but apparently the guy who normally came with them was sick and couldn't make it. They followed the hallway slowly, making sure not to slide on the slippery floor. Zoe stopped at a doorway with a piece of paper taped to the door. "Do not open." Mason turned and looked at the door. "I think that means we should open it." What if there are dangerous chemicals in there? I mean, if it's worth putting a sign." Zoe ignored him and tried the handle, but it was locked. Crap. Oh well. Ethan let out a quiet sigh of relief, and they carried on down the hallway. They passed into the room and looked inside. The room was filled with open cardboard boxes. They wandered in, and Ethan poked his head into one of the boxes and screamed. A pale face with unblinking eyes stared back at him. He stumbled backwards and fell into another box. What the crap happened?" Mason rushed to pick him up. Zoe burst out laughing, reaching into the box and holding up one of the CPR dummies. "What the heck, dude?" Ethan's heart was still racing. "You scared the crap out of us, you idiot." Zoe tossed the dummy back in the box. As they went to leave, they heard a loud crash come from down the hallway, like a shelf falling over. "Dude!" Mason froze mid-step. What the crap was that? They all went quiet to listen. "Must have been a bat, or like maybe some kind of animal trap down here," Zoe whispered. What if there's a heckin' squatter down here, dude? Ethan stammered. Maybe we should go, Zoe whispered, even quieter this time. Are you kidding? This is awesome, Mason grinned, pushing ahead and walking towards the noise. What are you doing, dude? Ethan choked, nervously trailing behind. That's why we came here, isn't it? To explore crap like this? Mason replied, turning his head. Watch out, Zoe called out, but Mason walked straight into a pipe jutting awkwardly out of the wall. Mason slammed into it, his feet sliding on the greasy floor as he went down with a thud. He groaned in pain. Be careful, dude, Zoe said, trying to pull him up without slipping. From the darkness ahead of them, a disembodied voice called out, Be careful, dude. The voice sounded exactly like Zoe's, but pitched down an octave. What the? Ethan cried out, backing up carefully, trying not to slip. What the? The voice ran out, slightly closer, mimicking his voice almost perfectly. Almost. Zoe pulled Mason to his feet. Let's get out of here, she yelled, and they all turned to run. Ethan was first, the light from his flashlight bouncing off the walls as he ran straight past the staircase hallway. Zoe and Mason made it down the correct hallway, and Ethan slid, trying to turn around. Hey, wait for me, guys, please, he called out, his voice breaking. He felt his heart drop as he heard the voice mimic him again, and something far worse, running. He heard something in a dead sprint coming towards him, like bare feet slapping against the floor. He screamed and turned to run, sliding every couple of seconds. The thing was gaining on him, like the slippery floor didn't affect it at all. He ran down the hallway and threw himself into a room filled with broken dummies. He put a hand over his mouth and hid in the corner of the room, crouching down as low as possible as the thing ran straight past. He could still feel himself starting to hyperventilate. It felt like at any second he would burst into tears. He sat in the darkness for what felt like hours. He had no idea where the thing was. He couldn't hear it anymore. When his breathing steadied, he clicked his flashlight on and stood up. There was hundreds of dummies stacked on top of each other. As he was stepping over them, he noticed one in the opposite corner. He froze. Something was wrong about this one. This one had arms and legs. His heart dropped. Its face contorted, and its mouth opened. Hey, wait for me, guys, please. The end. That was a really good story today. I liked it a lot. I think that the protagonist definitely did the most with what he had. There wasn't a whole lot of different options that could have been taken there, that's for sure. I think in a life and death situation, we don't often give ourselves enough credit. I think that a lot of people make decisions in those life or death situations. I've definitely been close to death a few times in my life, and I think we make what seem like rational decisions in the moment, like that one to just keep running and not kind of look out for the hallway that he needed to take, and that's fine. There's not really anything we can do to blame ourselves in those situations. I think if there's any standout that I would say or recommend to try and apply to our lives from this one, it's understand that in the worst of circumstances, you're trying your best, and you can't really blame yourself for making a rash decision in a time of immense pressure. I think that, as fun as urban exploring is, you got to be careful, because with how many stories there are of these creatures and things out there, it only needs one to be right for you to be dead. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to today's video. Hopefully y'all have been liking the daily uploads. I love y'all a lot. Please, if you enjoyed the video, please like and comment and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have done anything differently? Would you have stayed at home and just watched TV instead of gone urban exploring? Was there anything that you could have done differently in that situation? Or do you think you might have fallen into that same rationale in those tough moments? Again, please let me know in the comments, and please let me know if you like the videos. Alrighty, this has been CC, and bye.